So we know Microsoft is currently working on the next Xbox. It's actually codenamed Scarlet. So Xbox Scarlet, at least that's kind of what we're calling it. Much like we called it Xbox Scorpio, and they ended up making a whole Scorpio edition after bringing the Xbox One X. But we know it's in development. We don't really know much else. Phil Spencer has said that they're going to target higher frame rates. That's one thing they were talking about. So we're assuming it's going to be a 60 frames per second machine that hopefully targets 4K straight up. It could still be a dynamically changing resolution, to be honest, as we saw with even the PS4 and the Xbox One when that came out. We were hoping for straight 1080p. Didn't quite get there, but I like the idea of maybe a 60 frames per second. Now, of course, we do have 120 hertz on the Xbox One currently, or I guess the S and X and everything. I don't really know what is using it, maybe indie games, but they could target something like that as well. But the biggest issue with the Xbox brand right now is its perception in Japan. See, Japan spends a lot of money on video games. In fact, we've seen things like the 3DS easily eclipse 20 million units in Japan alone, lifetime. We see the Switch just cruising over 4.5 million units already in its year and a half or so on the market. And then, of course, we see the PS4 over 6 million units. So there is a lot of money to be made in Japan. The only issue is the Xbox isn't a big seller there. In fact, it's a very small seller. It was actually much better with the 360 when they made an attempt. But the Xbox One, as it stands now, is still, since being introduced, as we saw back in 2013, still not cracked 100,000 lifetime units in Japan. That is pretty bad. And that's a massive drop from the 360, which the 360 actually cruised over 1.5 million lifetime units in Japan. That's still not as much as like the PS3 or obviously the Wii, or even now the Wii U did better, well, way better than that. And then of course the Switch and now the PS4. Basically everything still sells more than Microsoft's brand out in Japan. Microsoft's a foreign company. The Xbox has seen more of like the US or the American console. So it doesn't have a great perception out there. But if Microsoft wants to even have a shot, or honestly, if the next Xbox can get to 1 million units, I would consider that a win for Microsoft, because they have to build the brand up there if they really want to be back in business out there. And honestly, they're missing a lot of units. I mean, we see the PS4 and the Switch having tons of units out there. I'm sure Microsoft would like to have 4.5 million sold out in Japan. It's just not in the cards right now. But it sounds like Phil Spencer is at least trying. He's making an attempt here. He's been making trips over to Japan, talking to developers, and it sounds like right now, at least currently, Japanese developers are involved in Project Scarlet or Xbox Scarlet's development. And this is from Phil Spencer talking to Famitsu. Now, Phil Spencer didn't provide any specific companies from Japan that are helping him or providing input for the next Xbox, but he did say that Microsoft is currently asking Japanese developers what kind of innovations they want to see in the industry that could be incorporated in the new system. Of course, he's traveled back and forth several times now, and I really am not sure what they would be telling him, what kind of innovations. Maybe he's out there seeing what kind of tools they're using, what kind of developments they're doing out there for their stuff. We know Unreal Engine 4 is like the big thing that a lot of them are moving over to now, but the Xbox One supports that, so that can't be it. I'm not sure. I feel like maybe they might be trying to play around with the brand a bit in Japan with Scarlet, because the Xbox One, when that came out, was massive. And honestly, it had a big focus on shooters and stuff, whereas the 360, which was slimmer than the Xbox One, which is weird, right? Usually it's not like that. Usually it gets smaller. But the Xbox 360 had things like Lost Odyssey, right? Blue Dragon. There were several other ones as well, including things like Infinite Undiscovery. There were a lot of RPGs that were Japanese-based that did go to the 360, and some of them, like even Eternal Sonata, were, I think, timed exclusives for a while too. Microsoft made a push then, and they were rewarded with over 1.5 million 360s sold there. Whereas the Xbox One has not really made that push. But recently, Nier actually has sold well, jumping up to at least number 5, I believe now, on the Xbox paid chart. So it does seem like the audience there is at least kind of interested in Japanese games. But it's up to Microsoft now if they really want to push it, to actually push the Xbox Scarlet with Japanese influence and some Japanese-based games. It's not going to happen overnight. It would be a long, long push to make it work, but honestly, 1 million units out in Japan for Scarlet in the next generation would be a win for them, I believe, even though, of course, the Switch 2, the PS5 would sell multi-million, right, amounts of systems. But we'll see. I like the idea of at least Phil Spencer just exploring his options out there, and I hope he is making a genuine push, because that's a market that they have missed sorely this generation, and if they can at least get back on the good side of the Japanese consumer, they might have a better chance next generation than they do now. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about Project Scarlet having maybe more input from Japanese developers, whether it's the look of the system or even the operation and the functionality of it. Let me know what you guys think about that whole situation. And do you think that Microsoft could work to get back in the good graces of the Japanese consumer? And I mean, they can't do any worse than what they've done with the Xbox One, where, I mean, guys, we're 5 years or so almost into the generation and they haven't even hit 100,000 units. The Switch has sold over 100,000 units several times in 1 week. So yeah, that's a big issue, and we'll see what they can do. But let me know you guys think about that down below. Make sure you guys like the video if you liked it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.